Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us today for the Safety and Health Magazine webcast, which is sponsored by Origami Risk. We're going to give our audience just a moment to settle in, and we'll be back with you shortly. Hi, folks. Thanks again for joining us. We will start the presentation in just a moment. We want to give our audience just a bit to settle in. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Safety and Health Magazine webcast. Have you gone mobile? Elevating Safety Programs and Boosting Productivity, sponsored by Origami Risk. My name is Barry Botino. I'm an associate editor at Safety and Health and a co-host of the On the Safe Side podcast. I'll be serving as the moderator for today's event. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to share with you all. As a disclaimer, the views of today's speakers and organization are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the National Safety Council or Safety and Health Magazine. Any mention of a commercial enterprise, product, or publication does not mean the council or the magazine endorses those items. At the conclusion of today's event, we'll conduct a Q&A with our speakers. If you have a question, just click the Q&A button, which is located at the bottom of your screen, type in your question, and press the send button. You can submit those questions at any time during today's event. Also, after this presentation, you'll be asked to complete a brief evaluation survey, but I'll tell you more about that a little later. This webcast will be archived. If you want to view this presentation or any of our past webcasts, please visit safetyandhealthmagazine.com/events. Now let's introduce our speakers. Joining us
Excellent.
today from Origami Risk are Judd Daig, Connie LeBeau, and Emily Wingle. Judd is an EHS sales executive who has helped numerous clients manage risk, improve outcomes, and make business decisions with superior data and analytics. Connie serves as a senior EHS sales executive who is committed to helping customers in the retail, manufacturing, construction, hospitality, and transportation industries provide safer workplaces. Emily is an EHS product marketing professional. She helps launch new products in the EHS suite, helping articulate features and benefits of the platform. Most recently, she launched Origami Mobile. Again, we thank you all for tuning into this presentation. And Judd, whenever you're ready, please take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Barry. Appreciate it. I'm going to talk briefly about what we're really what to expect today. Connie LeBeau is going to lead the mobile webinar. She'll be demonstrating the mobile product. I'm confident you'll find her examples very relatable. Emily Wingle, she'll be answering your questions in the chat. She'll also provide a couple of QR codes at the end, so if you'd like more information as we wrap up. Again, Judd Daig here. I've had the privilege of working with Qualcomm, working with Apple and Google on their EHS compliance programs. As an early mobile adapter, I went from a Palm Pilot to the first smartphone about 20 years ago with a Kyocera 7135. I was also issued a BlackBerry for work, so I don't know if anyone else had to carry around, two phones in their pockets, back in the day. But things certainly have changed. I think with the popularity of bring your own device policies, it's likely that many here carry an iPhone or an Android device for both personal and work issues. Bottom line is, all are welcome. So let's go ahead and submit questions in the chat as we go along. Some will be answered as we live as we go through the presentation. But let's get started with the agenda. Why mobile? We will detail how mobile apps can make the job of a safety manager easier, what you should expect or really consider when you're looking at a mobile solution. Connie will conduct a live mobile demonstration, and we'll also suggest some best practices from hundreds of implementations. And I'll share an actual case study, really multiple case studies, and the results that they received from 3 different industries. And then we'll wrap up with some active Q&A. But again, now it's time to lean in and respond to our first of 3 poll questions. Let's see, are you currently using a mobile device for data collection? So maybe paper and a clipboard is your current mobile device. That's fine if that's how you're collecting data, but what's your best response? Yes, it's working well. You have an app. Maybe the app's underutilized. Answer no if you're just looking at options, or maybe it's not on your radar. We'll go ahead and wait for these results to come in. And it looks like they're okay. It's a pretty good mix. Actually, I'm kind of surprised. Most are looking at options. That makes sense that you'd be here right now. Some about 1 in 5, it's not quite on the radar yet. Anything else surprising to the group?
No, just what we expected.
Yeah, it's pretty typical. I mean, paper and clipboards are still very much out in the field. That's 16%. So okay, all right. Well, Connie, with that, let's go ahead and kick it off here and jump right into why mobile.
Thanks, John. So then thanks everybody for being with us today. We'll start with why mobile. This graphic illustrates the technological advancements, the productivity tools, and the process changes that many of us on this webinar have experienced throughout our careers. Notable omissions from this graphic include fax machines, Rolodexes, and payphones. All have been replaced by more efficient digital tools and processes. Today, we'll discuss how we can leverage similar tools to enhance safety management. So that begs the question, why mobile now? Or better said, why change processes now? The processes you have are probably working at least to a certain degree. Everyone's trained on them, they're familiar, you can collect at least some of the data you need, the format is easy enough, whether that's paper or a spreadsheet. And you can bring a clipboard anywhere on a job site, wherever that is. The problem with paper and spreadsheets is that key information is lost all throughout the process. It's not always entered onto the paper, or if it is, it's not legible, or there's a delay in submission. And possibly the biggest pains and most limiting factors in the process are with the compilation of the data and then the follow-up on the exceptions. So the data is collected, but the follow-up often falls through the cracks. And then the opportunity for data-driven decisions is squandered. So the full picture of incidents by location or incidents by cause, audits assigned and not performed, inspections assigned and not performed, and other type of data is not accessible. It's lost. However, when the data is captured and visualized effectively, it can lead to significant improvements in workplace safety. So we're going to actually go to another poll here. What type of data do you currently or do you want to collect in a mobile app? And you can check all that apply. Give them,
All good answers, yeah.
Yeah, and some of our customers answer all of them.
Right.
Some only a few.
Yeah, I've been hearing safety observations popping up a lot more as a, kind of an aspirational use. How'd they come in? Oh, there we go.
Safety observations, 91%. Yep, near misses,
Fantastic.
audits. We get asked a lot about safety observations and near misses to be more proactive. And we will be showing examples of that shortly.
Excellent.
Great. Thanks, everybody, for participating. All right, so our customers transition to mobile for a lot of reasons. To either transition to mobile or enhance their existing mobile programs because of the value and impact it provides. So this transition can yield a significant return on investment for various reasons. Those include the time savings, the reduction in reporting lag time, improved data quality, and that proactive follow-up. Switching to mobile can increase all of those things, and that has that impact on return on investment. So we're going to delve into specific case studies showcasing the cost savings our customers have realized later in this presentation. But one such case study is from Phoenix Marine. While we'll cover the overall impact of this in detail in a moment, this quote encapsulates the value that mobile solutions bring: the elimination of redundant work, the reduction in errors, and increased accuracy. These factors contribute to real savings and the generation of more precise and more actionable data. So, how exactly does mobile technology help safety managers maintain or improve workplace safety? Um, First of all, real-time data collection. When it comes to reporting safety, speed matters. Mobile app technology can act as an extension of safety teams across various facilities and job sites. With mobile, safety managers can track, view, and assess situations as they unfold almost in real time. Employees can input data on site as incidents occur, which leads to instant reporting, and that provides faster access to crucial details for safety managers. So that immediacy allows for better decision making and prompt implementation of corrective actions and preventative measures. So additionally, conducting inspections and reporting incidents becomes faster and easier with the mobile app, which encourages greater employee participation and greater employee engagement, which leads to more real-time data collection. With digital documentation, accuracy increases exponentially, and this accurate reporting improves safety overall. Eliminating or reducing paper-based processes and administrative workloads results in greater accuracy. Employees can input text or capture photos that provide precise details as incidents unfold, enhancing the completeness of that incident report. A mobile technology also facilitates better incident investigations because it enables the immediate capture of photos and vital incident details, even eyewitness reports and eyewitness accounts, right on the spot as the incident's happening. And then finally, there's the standardization of the processes. There's a real benefit in standardizing processes and making it easier for employees to follow those standardized processes. Safety is enhanced when all of the incidents, hazards, and inspections that you require are reported and quickly corrected. The right process enables your entire team to know the who has to do what by when. And the right mobile app can enforce and help automate these processes. So once that data is captured in the app, it can be handled based on the situation. For example, with the right technology, you can capture an incident and automatically begin an investigation once that incident is submitted. And the severity of the incident can determine the type of root cause analysis that's automatically assigned. So many of our customers assign a 5 why root cause analysis for a less severe incident and a fishbone to more severe incidents. But with a mobile app, that's all captured as the incident upon incident intake right on the scene. So when you're considering mobile solutions, you should be taking several factors into account. Number one, can you digitize your own forms, and do you need to digitize your own forms? Most of the companies that we talk to have spent a long time perfecting their own forms and their own processes and need an app that can do that. So they can't necessarily use those canned forms. They have their own variations of those, and they need an application that they can configure according to their needs. Do your employees have access to a device? Are they allowed a device in the work site? Is it a company or a personal device? If they don't have access to a device, is there a place for a kiosk or a tablet so you can continue to capture that information even if they're not allowed to have a phone in their hand? What roles currently complete forms? And some of this actually goes to that first poll that we did. Do you want to add to that? Do you want to capture more example? For example, do you want to add anonymous near miss or hazard reporting? That's probably one of the most frequent things that I'm asked for in my role is, can we capture anonymous near miss and can we capture anonymous hazard reporting? Or is there a method for employees to do that? Because as we all know, the more of that kind of data you can collect, the more leading indicators you have available to make the corrective actions. Will your employees need offline access? Depending on what they're doing, depending on where you're located, depending on where your manufacturing plant is, or depending on what remote location they're in, you may need offline access to access this. And will different roles need to complete different forms? Ideally, you want a person to log in and only see the forms that they need to complete. So a frontline person only sees their frontline forms, a manager might only see their forms, but you're not confusing them with the app. And then you want to be thinking about what core processes you want to move to mobile. So what are the must-haves? What are the nice-to-haves? You don't have to have everything on that first iteration, but you want to have a basic system, basic solid system that meets those must-haves so that it can start to produce results. So as you're developing your requirements, think about those things that will make it easier to capture the data that you need. What features will help you meet your goals? What kind of reporting capabilities do you require? As you look at different applications, think about what will make the app easier to use for your user. So do they need voice to text? Will that help them capture the best data most easily? And also, don't forget to look at how easily you can import data and export data from the app. Ensure it can be configured to your company's needs. What I'd like to do now actually is I'm going to show you a demo and I'm going to try to hit on all those features that I just had in that last slide. So I'm going to stop my video, pull my phone, and I'm going to share my phone.
And actually, Connie, while you're doing that, we had a question come in that I think it would be great if Judd could answer right now. How do you handle reporting if your employees can't have devices on the floor? Judd, do you want to go ahead and address that one?
Sure. I think Connie actually touched on that. Typically, employees would have maybe a shared kiosk on the shop floor or a tablet at a station, somewhere away from other risks, say away from hazardous materials.
Great. Okay. Well, Connie, it looks like we do not yet see your screen up.
Got
Okay,
it.
there it is.
Oh, it's
great. So over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you see my phone?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So this is my demo app. I have it up. It is demo data. One of the things that's that's hugely beneficial about Origami is that we can actually configure your forms and your company's processes. But I'm going to take you through a couple of different things on the Origami app to show you these types of features that we can offer, the features that we just discussed. So I'm going to start with audits and inspections. A couple of things here. I have a whole list of audits and inspections that I can perform. This could default to one. I often have customers who just want their line people just to see one form, and then they have that. A manager might have multiple. It's really entirely up to you and your processes. We can really do any type of inspection. We have a customer who has, he has one form when people get to work and the question is do I feel safe at work today? Yes or no? And if it's no, then they have to answer an additional question. It's that simple, and it can be that simple, or it can be much more complicated depending on what it is that you need to do. So I'm going to start with a hot work permit to work inspection form. You have the hot work permit, you've gone through those processes, but now you need to double check and make sure all that's taken care of. But this is just to give you an example. A couple of things about this. We can assign it to a user. When you're talking about integrating to other systems, you want to make it so that you can integrate potentially with your HRIS system. Less data entry. I don't have to enter my name or my email address. Maybe I want to just type in my location. As we're taking this information in, we're tagging and structuring this data so that it goes to the right place. And this is really setting it up for reporting, for analytics, but also for routing and corrective actions. So for example, if I'm the user, I can have setup of corrective actions in here that go directly to my supervisor, which is all set up on the back end within the system. So as I'm moving through here, just a couple of things that I do want to show. Number one, there's lots of different ways that you can answer questions with an Origami. Yes or no on this particular form, but it could be, you could have choices of 1 through 5. You could have yes, no, or maybe, yes, no, or this is yes, no, not applicable. You could have vary and not vary. All of those kinds of things are available. So as I'm moving through here, I want to make this, and you want to be thinking about who's doing the work, how easy is it to perform, what additional tools do they need? We have tool tips here, so you can see why do I need to do this? Why do I need to ensure that the floors, work level, and below are clean and protected? Note, I have to assess a 35 radial sphere. So anything that's important, I can put in a tooltip. If somebody knows that, we can continue to move on. If our combustibles removed or shielded from sparks, if I click no, a couple of things can happen. I can make an automated field come up that explains, that takes the next step, or that creates a corrective action, or I can create an action manually. In this case, I'm going to assign an action. And then I'm going to assign what needs to happen. I can use talk to text on this, fix this immediately. Oops. Fix this immediately. So it's taken that. I can say if this will remain open until I say what action I've taken, and I can assign this to a user. Once I assign that to the user, as soon as I click submit, they'll receive notification of this, and then they'll actually have the opportunity to come in and complete that action as well. And then that's all available in analytics. So then you can see who's done what, have they done what they needed to do to correct this. I can also add media right to this action. So I can choose from a library. I can take a photo. I can take a video. In this case, I'm just going to take a picture of my cheat sheet that I have right here, use that photo. And if I wanted to, I could also annotate that photo once it's attached. So I'm moving through here, I'm doing my checklist, I'm taking my pictures. And now when Adam, who received that corrective actions, once I hit submit, when he receives that correction of action, he'll have a photo of that problem. So he'll know exactly what he needs to do. So I'm moving through here. You can decide which fields you want to be mandatory, which fields you don't want to be mandatory. And then I can hit submit. If that's not, I can add any additional items. Once I hit submit, one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to go in or it's going to say, we can't submit this yet because you don't have all the required fields. Because this is a demo, we don't make all the questions mandatory. That's why you saw this. And Adam was just notified that he has a task that he needs to complete. I'm going to move on to an incident, but Emily, did I miss anything on that piece just now? Is there anything I neglected to show? Emily or Judd?
No, I don't think so. I think it was great. Thank you, Connie.
Okay, thank you. So incident reporting has the same types of process and the same types of rules. You could have any type of incident report. And it's really interesting when I talk about the configurability, everybody wants the same, basically the same titles of incident forms. And everybody always asks for our quote unquote standard forms. And we rarely have a customer that uses that standard incident report because every company, maybe they're 80% of their process is the same, but it's the 20% that are different that we need to configure and capture on these forms. So if I wanted, I could come in and I could do an injured employee form. This is usually fairly comprehensive. This is set up so that you can decide how much information you want to capture in the field or on the floor and how much you want to capture later on. Same types of things where we're tied in with different locations. So that's really easy to enter. That's really easy to move through, reported by name, the phone, all of those things, what they were doing, how to describe that. All of that's available in that injured employee. Body part injured. But what I want to show you because of the questionnaire that we had earlier is a safety observation. These can be as simple as you need them to be, and they can also be anonymous. We have ways of logging in so that it's anonymous, but these are really important to capture. So you want to make these as easy as possible, and you want to give people the ability to either capture an unsafe act or unsafe behavior, an unsafe condition. You could even do good catches. You could call these good catch safety observations where you see somebody doing something right. It's entirely up to you. We can mark the severity as we talked about earlier. If it's catastrophic, you're going to want an automated workflow to happen immediately. If it's minor, that'll have a completely different workflow. Note the location because we're going to be tagging and structuring these locations for reporting purposes. What department, if that's something you want, this is where we really come into that configuration. Maybe you don't need to track by department. Maybe you need to track by where in a distribution center something's happening. Entirely up to you. Is an investigation needed? You may or may not want that question depending on who the reporter is. You may or may not want this person to report their name. This doesn't have to be mandatory. You could put reported by name if requested, or you could look up the reporter. You may or may not want that person's email address to be required. In this case, it is required. Again, that depends on your unique processes within your organization. And I apologize. I'm a terrible multitasker. I know that.
I'm impressed, honestly.
Sorry, everybody. Of course, I have to have a name with a lot of vowels. All right, well, you get the idea. That's not going to go through, but I think everybody gets the idea. I did want to talk a little bit about this. So And I wanted to show this on audits and inspections too. This can really be anywhere. This person's reporting a safety observation. They could actually note the equipment that this has to do with, and this is important. So for example, if it had to do with a specific type of crane and they wanted to note that safety observation, you can then run reports on that equipment as well. So now you're not just observing the safety of people, but you're observing the safety of your equipment, and then that's being reported on as well. We can integrate with any type of asset system you have, and a good app should be able to do that. So you have a system somewhere, most companies do, even if it's in a spreadsheet, we can integrate with that. And now you're tagging those safety observations or those audits or those inspections directly to the machine. When I describe the observation, I can type, I can use talk to text. This doesn't look safe to me. Please have a repairman fix it. And in this case, I had an act, so maybe that isn't entirely relevant, but you get the idea. It was act or condition. And then once I hit submit, a lot of things are going to happen based on a lot of things will happen based on how severe it was and what that is. It'll get routed to different people. There might be an investigator assigned, there might be investigation assigned, but it's entirely up to you, and it's customized by your workflow processes. Notice that injured employee incident report that I started is saved in a draft that can remain there until I can come back and complete that, or I can delete that if necessary. Emily, do you have anything that you, is there any questions, or is there anything that we need to address while I have this app up before I switch it off?
No, I don't think so. I think that was really helpful. In the meantime, I can go ahead and if you stop sharing, I can go ahead and share my screen back so we can get back to your part of the presentation. It did look like we had one caller raise their hand. So as a reminder, you can just type your question in the Q&A box, and we would be able to go ahead and address that at the end of the presentation.
Sure. And sorry, I was supposed to stop that share. Sorry, I got distracted.
No
I was
worries.
looking at the Q&A, and I apologize, everybody.
There's a lot going on, honestly. There's chats
sorry.
and Q&A.
There's just a lot. I apologize, everybody. I did want to answer. Yes, you can assign the audit to a non-user of Origami. So we definitely have ways of doing that. Are there any questions, Emily, as you look through the Q&A that jump out that I should take a pause and answer now, or should we wait till the end?
There is one that I think would be good for you to address, because you just did the demo and it's related to the demo. It looks like Christy said, what were the 3 observation types listed in the demo? Is that something you can address?
I sure can. It's acts. Hang on a second. Let me pull that back up. New. Safety observation and type. Act, behavior, or condition. Can you see that, everybody? Act, behavior, or condition. ABCs. I tried to remember it that way. And of course, there could be other types as well. This is what we've seen is the most popular and the most prevalent.
Great.
Great question. Other questions?
No, I think we can probably address some of the other questions at the end of the presentation.
Fantastic. So we've talked about what to think about when looking at mobile apps, and you've seen a short demo. So let's talk about how to ensure the success of the program, because the steps you take to roll out the product will determine how well it works. We'll cover a few best practices over the next slides that we've seen really facilitate positive outcomes with the technology. And this is really for any technology. Select a diverse group of internal employees to test the application that reflects the various roles and personalities within your organization. So the group should have both enthusiastic supporters of the project as well as skeptics of the project to address objections and ensure buy-ins. I often see this where a customer will bring in 2 groups, from different job sites, from different locations, And then we collect that feedback on a regular basis so that we make sure we're incorporating that. It's really important to make sure that you have executive support, and that usage of the system is mandatory in order to avoid project failure. This ideally happens after a significant amount of testing. Once you've done that that the application testing, you're ready to make it mandatory, but you want to make sure that everybody's using it. And you should have meetings to collect the feedback, but keep the focus of those meetings and the discussions of the project on the benefits and the objectives of adopting the new technology and the new processes. And you do need to commit to that testing. So commit to fully testing the application during development and or configuration. Whether you're developing your own app, you're configuring a vendor's app, commit to fully testing it all throughout the process. We have a phased approach to Origami where we use multiple phases, and in each of those phases, there's sign-offs. As you're getting that user feedback, regularly share the feedback with the development or the configuration team. Subjecting a new application and process to real-world scenarios with your teams regularly during the testing phase will ensure that the end result meets your needs. Designing in a bubble without exposure to the end users can result in costly delays for the rollout of the new technology.
Hey, Connie, I see a question here that might be good to answer live. I know that if a company has an integration point with another system, if they have open APIs, we can pretty much integrate with anyone. But the question specifically is it compatible with IBM Maximo used for work orders? Have you bumped into that? Think of like an incident documentation done in Origami and then the follow-up action taken in Maximo.
We have, and I don't want to get into like a lot of details on the specific integration with Maximo, but except to say that we do integrate with Maximo for those work orders, or we can integrate on the reporting process with the work orders as well. So I've definitely had that request, and we've definitely resolved that request before.
Nice.
Great question. So I went the wrong way. So okay, training. So how much training you will be required really depends on the complexity of the forms that you're rolling out and how new those processes are that you're rolling out. So a well-designed app, though, shouldn't need a lot of training. The structure of the questions and workflow should guide the user. So just on the example that I just gave with the safety observation, that should be pretty easy to guide through. You have the tool tips, but you might want to train users on the ABCs. Act, behavior, condition, when to report those kinds of things. So that training can be live. It can be live in person. It can be webinar based. It can be asynchronous. What's most important is that end users understand exactly how to use what you provided and that they have an easy and quick way to get the questions answered. And I want to really emphasize that last sentence that I just said, because people get stuck. They want their questions answered right away so that they don't move on to the next thing. Everybody's busy. Everybody has a lot to do. Safety managers, safety supervisors in particular, usually have more things to do than time to do them. So you want to make sure any questions that come up can be instantly answered.
And we're seeing that in the Q&A right now, Connie.
Okay. Any questions that I should pause for?
No, I think we're good right now. Go ahead.
Oh, and one more thing, you can always, and one of the things that we do for training is we actually tape the training, we record the training, we make that available, and we can even put training for the application right into the application. So you can click on a link to go out to the training. So we really want to make that as simple as possible. And the latest thing in training is to just have snippets, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, really quick for training, especially with something like this with an app.
Awesome.
So let's talk a little bit more about some of the best practices that we've seen. We cleaned this list when we were putting together this presentation for this webinar. We really worked with some of our internal folks to identify what have some of our customers done that we've seen that has really made a difference in how successful the program is. And it really can't be overemphasized that a user-centered design that involves the frontline employees is key to ensuring adoption. And I can't remember if I talked about this or not, but what you want to do is really observe and note the processes that the app will replace. So how long does it take to complete the current process? How can you shorten it with digitization? Don't assume that the app will be easier to use than paper. I've been in 2 different medical practices where the app was so complicated, I literally begged for paper. I'm like, please just give me a paper form. It was so complicated. It was so convoluted and hard to get through. This, of course, is, is regards to testing too, but the app should always be easier to use than paper. And we have one of my colleagues actually used to be a safety manager, and he tells a story where he did this fancy app and put it on the floor, and the foreman came in and he's like, I'm not using this, it's terrible. They hadn't involved that foreman or any of the foremen within the process in any of the testing or design process. So it's paramount that you have to receive their feedback.
Buy-in's critical.
It absolutely. It's a tricky balance because when you're collecting that data, you want to make it easy to use, but you also have to collect the data that you need to collect for reporting, whether that's for compliance reporting or for your own reporting. So it's really a tricky balance between collecting necessary data while keeping an application easy to use and ensuring it's manageable. This is why testing, again, is so important. Always, though, be considering what type of reporting and analytics you need. You really want to be able to structure that data and make sure that you're kind of thinking about the reports you need in the beginning of the process. So the incident types, some of the things that I talked about in that demo was location and cause and severity, frequency. All of those things are the things you want to be thinking about as your rollout. You want to be thinking about the reporting that you eventually want as you go through that rollout. Also be thinking about how integratable it is. So we have customers that have converted to Origami from really cool safety apps. They were great to use in the field, really easy to use. They had slick graphics and those kinds of things, but they had very limited reporting capabilities and analytic capabilities, and it was almost impossible to get data out of those apps into a spreadsheet where it could be analyzed. So the data was captured, but there was nothing that could be done with the data. So be thinking about that in the rollout, but also in when you're choosing the vendor. We do have a customer in the UK who used gamification to incentivize usage with prizes. So any app, you'll be able to see who's using it, where they're using it. And they had like a scratch off tickets for like safety prizes. So they could hand out these tickets. It's a large food service customer, and they would scratch off and get safety tickets. You can always do points, and then points equals merchandise, safety merchandise, and those kinds of things. But it is a fun way if you have the buy-in of your organization to do those kinds of incentive programs. And always ensure that the solution, and as you roll it out, that it has that it meets your IT department's requirements. So ideally, choose a vendor that requires as little IT support as possible. Most IT departments in most companies are slammed. So you want to make sure that whatever you're rolling out needs as little as possible from that. As you're doing the rollout and you're collecting data and you're collecting feedback from your employees and from your different employee groups or your representative employees, and you're making the changes in the rollout, communicate back. Make sure that communication is bi-directional. So you're saying, hey guys, we heard you. You thought the incident report, the injured employee report had too many questions on it. We took a few of the questions out. We've changed the layout. We've done that. So try it now. So make sure you're always communicating that back. And also have a regularly scheduled forum for employee feedback. So employee concerns and questions are resolved rapidly. I've seen where my clients we have like an ongoing spreadsheet, and then we meet every few weeks and we take all that feedback and we answer all the questions. So everybody gets all their questions answered, but it's a great way to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So, what are the results? I've talked a lot. I'm going to pass this over to Judd, and Judd is going to actually go through some real world case studies, and then we'll get to Q&A. Judd?
Yeah, thank you, Connie. I think you touched on a lot of the areas that you'll see we'll actually see in a real world example here, kind of reiterated. So I think it's going to be very helpful. The first one is going to be a hospitality industry. This large client, they basically required software to help them promote a culture of openness and of timely reporting. They had 25,000 employees. They have 100 locations. It was all managed by a one-woman safety team. So initially they had no central mechanism to consolidate injury or accident data, spot loss trends, or drive meaningful, safety measures. It was basically a traditional fear of reporting incidents. That was their safety culture. That slowed down safety improvements. It impacted, hazard mitigation. So her desire was to say, hey, let's increase visibility, not punishment. So what they did is they launched a company-wide safety initiative. It included a mobile app for managers and supervisors so that they could quickly report injuries using their mobile phones. They simplified an incident reporting. It was completed in both English and Spanish. It was down to 2 minutes. So they're just making improvements as they go along. And some of the benefits that they received were they determined that some of the most common injuries were slips, trips, and falls. So that was an eye-opening experience for them, and that unique insight spurred them to invest more in safety equipment to mitigate those injuries. And overall, they improved their safety culture. They basically had faster reporting facilitated by timely employee communication. They had better treatment of injuries. They had improved outcomes and reduced litigation. So the lag time reduction went from nearly 12 days to less than 48 hours. When they reduced worker comp claims, she saved $200,000 in their first year. So she then used those savings to justify hiring additional resources that strengthen their safety culture with constant improvements. The next one is more of a transportation logistics company. It's Phoenix Marine Services. If you're not familiar with them, they operate one of the biggest import-export seaport terminals in the Western Hemisphere. So it has a 300-acre sized terminal. And because workers were really required to perform duties throughout the terminal during the course of a shift, any technology solution required mobile functionality. And to investigate incidents, they were using SharePoint. They were using Google Sheets. They had other email-based processes for collecting investigation details and photos. That was inefficient, as you can imagine. Then they had to spend time to copy and paste the data, over into other systems to better analyze it. So what they did is they implemented a mobile safety solution to save time, ensure better visibility into not only safety activities, but also to improve engagement. And one of the key takeaways I thought that was interesting with Phoenix Marine was that they interviewed the people using the app for audits, and they took that opportunity to introduce them to additional safety concepts. They also listened and learned. And one of the things that they found out was that there were dead points or dead spots within the terminal. So they knew that they needed to securely store information on a device offline and then submit it when the Wi-Fi was back in range. Let's look at the next case study, the third and final one, Quanta Services. They're, if you're not familiar with them, you probably will be. They have like 300 logos underneath their banner. They provide critical infrastructure services to electric power, pipeline, industrial communication clients. I think primarily communications, but they have 40,000 employees across 300 wholly owned subsidiaries. So imagine collecting data at that scale. In the past, Quanta used a BBS, a behavioral-based safety program, to capture all of their at-risk and safety behaviors or safe behaviors. They then basically gave out workers index cards to be filled out and turned in at the end of the day. They'd collect them. They would key in the responses into a spreadsheet. So again, they could create some type of dashboards or reports for insights. The projects were getting larger and they were getting much more complex. So what they did is they automated the whole process by translating the cards into a mobile form so field workers could submit them directly from their mobile app. They also applied the capacity model, focusing on sticky or stuff that kills you, using the mobile application to track and verify that controls are in place and effective anytime work is being done. So this it really got the workers into the right mindset, and it dramatically reduced SIFs. So one of the key findings I think that was also interesting was Quanta said, hey, as we increased all of our audits and safety observations, I think they've done to the tune of like 427,000 completed to date, that they observed that there was a direct decrease with the number of incidents and claims. So I hope these real world examples, give you a better idea of the results that you can achieve. There are more case studies available on our website at origamirisk.com. And I just want to say thank you for everyone joining. And as we close up, Emily, would you like to summarize what we've covered today?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jed. Thanks, Jed and Connie, for the great presentation. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the takeaways based on Connie and Jed's presentation. So why mobile? Eliminating paper forms, eliminating disparate systems, having all of your data in one place, having real-time data collection, reduced reporting lag, better data quality, all the data at your fingertips. That's why you want to move to mobile, right? Having those insights. How can you be successful with rolling out mobile? So one is consider the end user, right? Consider them in your rollout, in your testing, make sure it's easy to use, make sure it's intuitive, and work with the user to configure, test, and iterate on what you're rolling out. And then really importantly, ensure buy-in not only with the end users, as I've highlighted, but also with executives. Make sure you have buy-in throughout the organization in the technology that you invest in. And if you are successful, you can see some really impressive results, as Judd highlighted. So we had clients see reduced incidents and claims, improved safety culture, and just better visibility into incidents and injuries that enable you to put proactive measures in place and reduce those incidents and claims going forward. So as we wrap up, we just wanted to let you know that we would be happy to connect with you. You can see our names and emails there, as well as some QR codes to connect with us on LinkedIn. No worries, you don't have to scramble to get all that scanned, because we are sending out those slides after the presentation as well, so you'll have access to these slides. We also wanted to let you know, if you enjoyed Connie's demo, we're actually going to be doing some more in-depth demos of our offering Origami Mobile next Thursday, a week from today, this leap day, to learn a little bit more about how to conduct audits within Origami and how to report incidents within Origami Mobile. So I'll just pause for a second and let you scan those QR codes if you'd like to register for those demos. Again, we are sending out these slides after the fact, so you'll be welcome to scan those QR codes once you receive those slides as well. And with that, I think we can go ahead and start our Q&A. We did get a few questions in, but please do continue to type any questions you might have in the Q&A panel at the bottom. If you'd like to learn more about Origami Mobile, you can also go to origamirisk.com/mobile or scan that QR code right there. That should go to that page. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Barry to moderate our Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Emily. And thank you, Judd and Connie, for sharing all your insights with us today. Before we start the Q&A, I want to let everyone know about the evaluation survey that we're asking you to complete. The survey will open in a different screen after this webinar. Your input is really important to us, and it does help us to improve our future webcasts. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible today, but any unanswered questions will be forwarded along to our speakers after the event. Now let's get to some of those questions. And the first one, we have an audience member who stopped in a couple minutes after the top of the hour and wants to know a little bit about some details about what app is this on and a little bit about the name and how they can find it.
Yeah, so the name of the app is Origami Mobile. And like I said, if you go to that landing page, origamirisk.com/mobile, you can find out more information on the app. Just as a summary, it has audit reporting, incident reporting, modern navigation, modern technology. You got to see that app in action through Connie. And like I said, you can also see a more in-depth demo of Origami Mobile next week.
And Barry, that sounded like a planted question. Was that a real question that somebody asked?
It was. We had someone who attended just a couple minutes late, probably just jumping on before we started. So we definitely wanted to clarify all that information to give them exactly what they needed. So,
Perfect.
next question I had for you all is, what if you have employees who don't want to download work apps onto their personal devices, and how should you handle that?
That's Connie, you want to take that one?
Sure. Absolutely. So we do often see that, or not often, but we do have employees who see that. So there's a couple of things that we can do. First of all, you can always issue them an employee device. But what we've made a lot of use of is kiosks. So there's a tablet somewhere. It might be in a trailer, it might be on a shop floor, it might be in a break room where employees can then go access that tablet. It's affixed to a kiosk so it doesn't walk off, and they can log in as an anonymous user, which kind of ties back to one of the questions I saw in the Q&A. It can tie back to an anonymous user, so they can have a code, they can just enter a couple of numbers, they can log in, or they can be non-logged in users, but you can still capture that information even though they don't have that app on the phone. It seems to be less and less of an issue as time goes by the way, where it used to be a bigger issue, but I've noticed over the years that's becoming less and less of an issue. And Emily, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I don't think so. I think you summarized it well, where there are options whether or not you want to give employees their devices, if you want to allow them to bring their own. But there are industries like manufacturing where you might not want people, or if they're driving, you might not want people on their phones. So there's definitely needs to be other options for those industries.
Great point, Emily. Yeah, Connie, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I did just want to add just something that I noticed in the Q&A, and a question came up, and then we answered it, and then I also just mentioned it briefly, and that's, can you assign this to non-logged in users, which that is a really common request. Probably should have addressed it in our presentation. Really is that common, where you have, whether that subcontractors, like for work permits, like hot work permits, working from height permits, where you want those subcontractors to complete those. They're not users of your system. They don't have an email address on your system. So we can assign those to subcontractors. We can assign those to subcontractors on construction sites. We even have customers, large retailer customers, who have kiosks in their break room where the employees they don't log in at all. It's a very large retail, tens of thousands of employees. They don't have email addresses. They just go in, they note their safety observations, complete their surveys that they need to complete, and they're submitted. So there's lots of different ways that we can work with people that don't have devices, or in organizations that don't use devices, or we don't have logged on users. So I kind of attached those two questions together, and I hope that makes sense.
Great. Thank you for that, Connie. Appreciate it. Just a reminder to our audience, if you have a question, go ahead and click on that Q&A button and type in your question and hit the send button. We've got time for several more questions here. I wanted to transition over to our next question, which is, if we have hundreds of users, how can we roll out?
Emily?
I can take a stab at that one. Yeah. So I mean, I think one of the things that is really important is piloting. So getting buy-in and feedback from a small group of users early in the process. You can pilot by the types of forms or incidents and audits you might want to roll out. You can pilot by the department types, locations, just any way to get some initial feedback on what you're building out. And then you can, once you get some of that initial feedback, iterate on the offering, and also obviously get some executive buy-in to make sure you're working with your marketing team to communicate across the organization, providing any download instructions and training throughout the organization. Then you can roll out to a larger group of users. But obviously continuing to get that feedback from end users throughout the process, figure out what's working, what's not, figuring out how to engage the different users across the board is important throughout the process.
And I think the only thing I'd add to that is, when you're doing those kinds of pilots, I've noticed in a lot of organizations, there's something that like some group, some location that emerges as being the best candidates for early adopters, whether it's the camaraderie of a certain team at a certain location or just their overall willingness. Maybe it's one location that's really been asking for this technology. Kind of choose those most enthusiastic ones first, because then the word of mouth will spread out to the others as well.
Connie, that's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate it. I wanted to ask, I know you guys have mentioned executive support for our safety managers in the audience. If they do run up against managers, for example, who aren't as tech savvy and who might need a little push to understand the value of technology, where can those conversations start? And I guess, Connie, I'll start with you on that. What's the best way to start that conversation, and maybe some key points to make during those conversations with management?
I think what I'm seeing a lot of, and what we actually assist our customers with as part of the buying process, is putting together a brief but powerful return on investment kind of analysis. So showing them, this is what we're doing right now. We're doing paper, and this is where we think, and actually OSHA has a safety pays website, like that kind of shows you what you can get back when you implement safety programs. But what you really want to demonstrate is a return on investment. I mean, nobody just does this, or most companies don't spend the money to acquire a new system because it's a nice to have. They need to see a return. And there's hard dollar costs and there's soft dollar costs that are pretty easily demonstrable if you have the right tools. So that's where I would always start that conversation, is the kind of return on investment you get. But if that's not the related to that, are things like reduced incident rate, being able to capture the data you need to make corrective actions quicker. I love that one case study Judd reviews where they just needed more floor mats. Like they had all these slip and falls and they really needed floor mats, but they didn't know they needed floor mats. They didn't know where they needed floor mats. So it was a relatively inexpensive corrective action that caused a pretty substantial reduction in incidents. So reduction in injuries, reduction in lost times, all of those things are impacted. And I think with the managers, you do also want to talk about lost time incidents. If you have those, how can we prevent the lost time incidents by proactively catching this data? So that's probably where I start, would be money, lost time, reduced incidents.
Great. Judd,
Emily,
would you like to add anything there, or Emily?
I would just add that, you got to kind of get in their shoes first, right? So it's a needs analysis. It's like, what are their pain points? What's causing them, headache? What's slowing them down? What's allowing them to save maybe some time? So if you're starting kind of with that end in mind and including them and interviewing them, then you can turn and use that up front to show them how that could be facilitated. And then they're going to be, an evangelist out on the shop floor.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we hear from some of our clients is a frustration that might come from safety folks is that productivity might be at odds with safety. And I think it's important for executives to realize that, if you have safety incidents, that is going to be an impact to your productivity. And you have to let your employees know the same thing. Like, not only is that going to harm you, but you're not going to, it's okay that the executives understand that if you have a good safety culture in place, if there is buy-in, that that isn't going to be an odds with your goals related to productivity.
If anything, it builds morale. I mean, they're being heard. You're seeing improvements and investments in their own safety.
Great. And I appreciate you mentioning evangelists for things like this. And Connie, you mentioned starting at a place that may be more excited about it. What's the value of having that one example and then sharing it kind of down the line in an organization?
People listen to their peers. Like if their peers are doing it, if their managers are seeing results in their organization, every organization is unique. So when they actually see examples at their own organization with their own employees, that's so much more powerful than anything you could learn at a trade show or from a sales representative or from vendor supplied materials or even competitors. It's really, we believe what happens to us, like what works in our organization.
I think adding on to that, just the value of relationships is like having conversations with I mean, this is something that we heard from one of our clients in their presentation at ASSP, just having conversations with your end users, with the people in your facility managers, helping them understand on a personal level why it's important, why this technology is important, and why that you actually care about their safety. They saw that face-to-face interactions actually decreased incidents. So, and I think that the same could probably be said of, you know, if you are having a real conversation with your employee, they're going to be more likely to use the app.
Great. Thank you for that. We've got about a minute left. And Connie, Judd, and Emily, I want to give you an opportunity to just share a key takeaway that you'd like our audience to take away from today's presentation. And Connie, I'll start with you.
I think that the biggest takeaway is how to improve processes. So improving processes will lead to a safer work environment, and people do want a safe work environment.
Great. And Judd, anything you'd like folks to take away?
I would just think, you know, ease of use is critical. We talked about training, like how much training, how in depth is it? There's, you know, there's exposure, but then if it's pretty intuitive and if people get stuck, but they can work their way through it, and then they're going to adapt it, I think that's a critical piece right up front.
Great. And Emily?
Yeah, I think just working with your end users, understanding their needs, and modifying your technology to meet their needs instead of trying to fit it into a box, and choosing a technology that's flexible enough that enables you to do that.
Well said. Folks, we thank you for attending this presentation today, and we'd appreciate you taking some time to share your feedback via our survey. A special thank you goes out to our terrific presenters today, Judd Daig, Connie LeBeau, and Emily Wengel, and of course, everyone from our sponsor at Origami Risk. This ends today's Safety and Health Magazine webcast. Take care, everyone, and have a safe day.